On this week's episode of the Pit Therapy Podcast, we are joined by Rob from several Texas hardcore bands, but namely Will to Live and True Intentions. We recently discovered Will to Live through their latest album, The Therapy Sessions, and Rob was kind enough to share his story of coming to the U.S. from El Salvador, how he got into hardcore music while living in Florida, and a history of his time in music. I personally had a list of questions to go through with Rob, and he nailed them all without me having to jump in. We had a ton of fun with this one, so let's open this pit up.
Somebody hit somebody!
Thanks for jumping on this episode of the Pit Therapy Podcast. I'm Kyle. We got Trevor, and then we are super pumped because we are joined today by a very special guest in Rob from Will to Live. How you guys doing? How you doing, Rob? Thanks for jumping on. We appreciate it.
Hey, thank you guys very much. Doing great, thank you.
Doing good today. So I've been texting back and forth with you, Rob, and dude, we're pumped, man. We were just talking about this before we jumped on, but yeah, man, we're super excited. So
Awesome,
Yeah.
guys, awesome. Well, I hope that I can answer your questions and paint a few pictures, mental pictures, that is. And man, I hereby will tell the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me
Yeah.
God. Yeah. No, go ahead, man. Go ahead,
No,
guys.
I
Thank
would.
you.
Yeah, no, it's cool. And again, we're grateful you jumped on. So I found you this year. Well, Will to Live. We tried to do this series on our pod where we find new bands to us and talk about them. And so
Mm.
I had recently moved to Dallas. I saw the flyer for Madball, and I think they had on the Instagram post some of your music, some of Will to Live playing, and I was like, "Holy cow, who's this band?" So went and looked you guys up. Fell in love with all your music, but especially the latest album, the Therapy Sessions. And I gotta say, man, that album is just super solid. So
Thanks, man.
So, just to kind of give a little bit of background, we talked a little bit about it on our other episode, but you guys formed back in around 1998. Am I getting those dates right?
Wilt was born. It's a curious date. Like I would say, like officially was born in, I would say, July of 1997
Okay.
of 97. And it was that it was that summer that I started. Like I'd moved to Texas from Miami. I'm actually originally from El Salvador in Central America. I moved to the U.S. when I was 12 and a half in 1990, and I landed into the fucking world capital of death metal at the time, which was, in Florida, right? Tampa, Florida. I lived in Miami, right? So, like I lived there for about 3.5 years, and that's kind of where I got my feet wet into heavy music. But then, like I moved to Texas in late '93, and you know, I had to like get my feet wet again and I was really actually, I didn't want to move here. My father relocated here, and I was pissed because I was leaving my band that I had in Florida, right? With my boys from high school and shit. Literally my first friends in the US, right? So it's a pretty deep connection, and I'm happy to have a deep connection with the main guy still to this day. And I wanted to go back to Florida, and I'm glad I didn't, because not because I don't like Florida, but because I made a life here, and it presented a different challenge to see what I wanted to see here in the music scene when at the time, and and I've asked around to plenty of old heads older than me, like, hey, was it ever in Houston or even in Texas, as a whole, was it ever like it was, at the height of like the bands that brought about and raised the flag for Texas hardcore, this wave that was started in late '98 and taken much further than Will to Live by bands like Iron Age, bands like prior to that, bands like Far From Breaking, Iron Age, and then from there, Bitter End, and then Power Trip, and all the bands that have spawned as a result of with the influence of Power Trip, which was a
Yeah.
in my in my experience and my appreciation of things, they're the ones that took it to the farthest level, and actually, I would say that there's before and after, right?
Right.
In Texas hardcore after those guys, and not only in like a recognition outside of Texas, but the metal and hardcore. It's like when I got into hardcore and metal in like 1990, 1991. It was almost like this too, where it was like you would see skinheads, you would see punk rock dudes, you would see hardcore people all at one show, and then it was almost like everybody just separated after that, like after 90, 92, 93, and everybody just kind of stood, you know, polarized for a long
Hmm.
time, man. And man, after, I mean, granted, it probably started happening around, 90, no, not the 90s, around 2006. I mean, I think Iron Age had a lot to do with bringing like a metallic, thrashy sound into hardcore. But then after Power Trip, it's like, now, especially in, I would say, seen wide all over the world, but in Texas, hardcore and metal, they live side by side, man,
Yeah.
which is cool. I feel like I strongly digress from your original fucking question.
Look, it's fine, and it brought up a couple other questions, and it's good information because honestly, like
There's no
me and
notes here,
Trevor,
man.
yeah, no, it's cool. Me and Trevor both from Salt Lake City, so like our view of hardcore is very focused on that. I'm recently located, like moved to Dallas, relocated down here, so I've tried to go to shows as I
You have a
can, but
lot of
like,
bands. You have a lot of
yeah,
bands to check out.
I know, and so that's like when I found you guys, I was like, oh, this is sick. Like I'm finally gonna start learning a little bit about Texas hardcore, but because before that, the only bands I knew were Power Trip and Judiciary.
And Kubla Khan, right?
Yeah,
Hey, man, that's that. I mean, those are bands that just took it much further than than a lot of the bands before, and it's. I mean, if you ask somebody that doesn't have a whole lot of exposure to hardcore, they may listen to them and think they're like a metal band, but it's like, no, those are dudes that came from the hardcore scene,
yeah,
and they just they prefer, that's the style of music they like to play. It's with a lot of heavy, like a lot of metal,
yeah,
a lot of elements of death metal. But oftentimes you'll see that the delivery, that the like the tribe that we belong to
hmm,
is slightly different than the metal tribe, even though we're friends.
yeah,
It's
And that's something we've talked about quite a bit, actually. Like, it doesn't matter if you're at, let's say, a more metal show like a Power Trip or even a pop punk show. If they have hardcore roots, you get a hardcore show. And so, like,
exactly.
Kyle was recently at Drain with Neck Deep, who's a very pop punk band, and it turned into a hardcore show for
Yep,
Drain.
yep.
Like,
No, the
hardcore follows.
yeah. I mean, there's I mean, and I'm I don't hold the canon of hardcore and what it's supposed to be, and even no one does, but
yeah,
it's like there's so many unwritten rules, that it's best they stay unwritten. That way nobody can claim I know better than everybody else. But I mean, having a common roots, and having, there's just certain things that you know you shouldn't have to explain to anyone. And if you're like in hardcore, and like some things that may not come natural to somebody from like a like a more of a popular music type thing. The camaraderie is this a different game. There's a lot less helping your helping your boys out.
yeah,
There's a lot more into looking out for number one, and me, and just me. That's what I see in popular music, which I could be wrong, but that's how I see it. It's a different game with hardcore. I mean, at least the hardcore that in the way I came across to it, man. And has been the one constant in my life since my teens, and it's given me everything, man. It's given me
Yeah.
everything, you know. And I've written plenty of songs about it. You know, my best friends, my wife's a hardcore kid, and it's so awesome, you know, that I can listen to stuff and you know she's over there mouthing along to the same lyrics. You know, she's not like I'm the chick that holds you know that I'm just around along for a ride here with
Right.
this idiot that likes this heavy music. You know, I really would rather be listening to something else. No man, this is her shit too. You know, like
It's cool.
she likes a lot of the bands I listen to. Um,
So how did
mhm.
you like how did you first get into this though? So like you said you kind of discovered it in Miami or I guess Tampa, right?
Yeah.
But
Well, no, it was
via
actually
Miami,
well,
so.
truthfully, I in my digression, uh, you know, being in Florida, I mean, if you wanted to be anywhere to be involved in death metal in like the 90 like in the early 90s, you know, Tampa was a very good I mean Florida was a good state to be in because you know no matter where you live, you know, Tampa is pretty central. We got we had all the good shit from Tampa and down in Miami. You know, there were different record stores that we could go to. And then for me, you know, I was a young buck at the time, you know, 15, 16, and you know, I would go with my boy Sebastian, who actually had a car, and can drive us, or we would take a bus to Coral Way to go hit up Y&T Records and some of those stores that had the stuff you couldn't find at the mall. You know,
Yeah.
you would go to the mall to either Sam Goodies or Specs. It's funny because here in Texas, Specs
A wine
is a
store.
liquor store,
Yeah.
which has nothing for me because I'm straight edge. I've been straight edge, you know, my entire life pretty much.
Yeah.
But at Specs Music is where we would go load up on stuff that was, you know, I mean, it's just about you know, Morbid Angel, all that type of stuff was available. But if you wanted to get something a little more obscure or demos or vinyl, well, then obviously you had to go, you know, in the early 90s, you had to go to stores like that, like Y&T and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But so my digression here again, your question was how'd you get involved? Metal, right? First. And I actually went to see a metal show to see bands that I really liked, but my introduction to something heavier than Metallica, which I was already listening to in El Salvador because they were a more commercial type of band, you know, where they had just put out the video for One, and you know, and Justice for All was the record that was out at the time, and one of my first records that I obsessed with heavy music, and I thought it was hot shit, man. And then uh, in uh, in middle school, man, I met this dude named Tito Barrera, one of my best friends, and my first friend in the United States, truly. He's like, "Oh, you like Metallica too, man? Well, man, check this out, man. I have the earlier catalog of Metallica." And it's like I would ride next to him on the bus to school every day, man, and he would like give me some more music, man. He's like, "Man, look, you need to come on my birthday," and I'll never forget. It was May 12th, 1990. "You need to come to my birthday, dude, and I'll introduce you to my cousins." And it's like, you know, here I was, this super conservative Salvadoran kid, pretty fresh in this country, for very overprotective parents, and and then I'm with these dudes, and he had all these 18, 20-year-old cousins that had long hair, and one of them even had a tattoo. And then to me, I was like, oh my god, these dudes, and look at their shirts. You know, I'll never forget the his cousin Chicho had this overkill shirt, and I was like, what the fuck? That's so sick. That's like so much sicker than like the Metallica shirts I see, you know, at the mall or whatever, or at school. They had this huge collection of records that encompassed all kinds of thrash, death metal, and we would just go into this room and make compilations. You know, we'll make cassette
Yeah.
comps, and it's like there's a couple of comps that my friend made for me, my friend Tito, and it's like I remember, man, like popping it in, like you know, here I am thinking Metallica's hot shit, and all of a sudden pop it in, hit play, and then I hear. Dun, 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 dun. I hear death for the first time, and I'm like,
Yeah.
"Oh God, this is some shit my parents would not be cool with me listening to it. Where's more of it? I want more of it.
Yeah.
And it's like that thing had Pestilence, Consuming Impulse in it. Um, and it had Sepultura. Um, I had already checked out Beneath the Remains because of the Inner Self video on MTV. But this one had songs from Schizophrenia. So it was a mind
That's
fuck,
awesome.
dude. Because then I would go and correlate everything with Metal Maniacs, and it was badass, man. But so he had made me a burnt, not burnt. Fuck, there was no burning. A copied cassette that had the Sick of It All, We Stand Alone EP,
Heck yeah.
and it also had and then the other side it had Blood, Sweat, and No Tears, right? And so I would listen to that, and to me it just sounded like metal also. And Lou Collar has a very particular voice. It's very
Hmm.
strong, and but it was just a Sony cassette. It was a yellow tape, so it's like I have no idea what the hell these guys look like, but I know that they must be these fucking bulky monsters
Right.
with that deep voice like that. And so I was like, badass, dude. Let's go to the show. It's Sepultura. It was called the New Titans on the Block, and it was Sepultura, Sacred Reich, Napalm Death, and the opener band was Sick of It All. And I'm like, fucking, let's go, dude, let's go. And my boy ended up getting grounded because he was always in trouble. So I was like, man, fuck it, I'm going to this fucking show. And here I am, like 14, 15 years old. And I just told my parents, I'm like, man, I have no fucking shame for this, man. Go drop me off at this show. And it was at this place called the Institute on, I think it was, I don't know, say if it was Driscoll or Lincoln Avenue in in Miami Beach, and I got dropped off, and I'm looking 1,000% brand new, and like what the fuck did I had never seen people that were like, because now it's commonplace to see people with tattoos,
Sure.
especially with like job stoppers, like neck tattoos, the
Yeah.
ones the ones you had to earn back in the day, like the one that just, now it's like just about anybody can go, and it's like, yeah, man, I'm gonna get my first tattoo in my neck. And before it was like, don't fuck with me,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
or I've been to prison or something like that, and
Right.
so I'm seeing people with like heavily body modification for the first time, and I'm just like, well, what the fuck, taking in the sights, and none of the bands had started yet, and I'm like, oh man, I hope I make it out alive, man, because these people are a lot of big people here, man. I'm just a fucking little kid with fucking with long hair, and this fucking skinny guy walks up to me and he's like, "Hey, what's going on, man?" And just kicks off conversation, and it's like. And I'm just kind of like asking, man, everybody cool here? And it's like, yeah, man, fucking people just come out, have a good time. It may look a little scary sometimes, but no, nobody means nothing by it, man. Everybody's just having a good time, and that's it, man. And it's like, you good? And I'm like, yeah, man, I'm good, man. And it's like, right on, man. All right, man. Hey, I gotta get on stage, man. And it was Lou from Sick of It All.
Heck yeah.
Oh,
Dude, that's
so
so sick.
sick.
And so all I remember is like, oh my god, that's the fucking guy, dude. Because I remember the lights go off, and all I hear is, "Hey, Miami, you know what time it is?" And they break into clovering time, dun, 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 dun,
Hmm.
and I'm like,
Yeah.
it's him, and he had black pants and a white shirt, dude, and I'm like, and he had a little rat tail. I'm like, it's gotta be him, and I'm like, oh fuck, did I stay hearing like what they're playing, and I'm like, god damn it, that's the shit from the fucking tape.
The
It's
tape.
them,
Yeah.
and it's so and then this dude is like he's jumping into the crowd and giving people the microphone, and I'm like, what the fuck is going on, man? And there were some older dudes from my high school there, some of whom I would become cool with later. This guy, Angel, the skinhead Angel, and like I remember seeing him fucking singing along, and I was like, yo, what the fuck? I gotta do that someday. And I actually, you know, later on, obviously, you guys contacted me through Will to Live, and I'm sure you want to hear more about Will to Live. But there's a couple of projects that I have going on, and at the same time, also or concurrently rather, with Will to Live, and one of them is True Intentions, and True Intentions has more of a traditional, like a it's almost like a New York hardcore
Yeah.
classic
Yeah.
sound. And the EP is called Point of Origin, and the title track Point of Origin is 100% a detailed account of what I just told you. You know,
Oh,
it's a
sick.
my first that was my point of origin into hardcore, you know, and that's how it ends, you know. Can you
Yeah.
remember yours? You know, that's the last line in the track, man. And I'm so lucky to have been able to put these things that are so important to me in in record form, so that some kid may bump into it later. Somebody from Salt Lake may
Yeah.
bump into it later, not knowing exactly what I meant, but getting that it was important,
Sure.
right?
Yeah. And
So
we had talked about that after listening. You know, I went back and after you'd been texting with Trevor and listened to some of the side stuff, I actually really like True Intentions because I kind of float recently a little more towards like the classical, like New York style hardcore. But I mean, yeah, super into Will to Live, but the lyrics and stuff on Will to Live really drew me in. I don't know. You're just really good at writing it. So I'm going to go back and listen to Point of Origin now and it's going to like click
yeah,
with
well, I
me.
mean,
And
it's you know, it's different things, obviously, but the song Point of Origin is 100%. It's it's like my homage to Sick of It All in particular, man. And it was so fucking badass to be able to like tell them exactly that on the night that we were sharing the stage together here in Houston with them
yeah,
and a Nasty Front, telling him, man, you know, this song is for you guys, you know. And it's like, because I feel like they're the living proof, dude,
yeah,
the living proof. And it's a band that has endured much. I mean, to me, they're still, just like I say in the song, you know, all these years, you're still the reference. And for me, they're still a reference.
yeah,
You know, I so much, you know, older than me, and they still, I mean, they can go several rounds and play several more shows that same night than I could. You
yeah,
know, but yeah, I guess as we get older, we get better at writing also, and we have more life experiences too. You know.
sure. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. So you'd been messaging back and forth with Trevor a little bit, and like on Instagram, we were talking a little bit about some of the bands that you've like played with or had guest vocals on and things like that. Just kind of a random question, but have you ever felt like at any of these moments where you were kind of starstruck with playing with any of these guys or, you know, having them featured on your albums? Like, have you ever, because I mean, you've thrown some big names out there, right? I mean, just saying that you've shared a stage with Agnostic Front and Sick of It All. Like, have you ever felt like, oh, shoot?
Man, I will tell you that probably not, man. And you know why? Because it was precisely, here comes the hardcore thing, dude. I always felt that way. And it may be just me that it was that how I saw it.
Yeah.
But with like metal bands, I always felt that way. You know, like they're over there, you know, and we're down here. You know, with hardcore, I'm gonna go back to that same fucking night, that first night. And I know it's useless for for the podcast tonight, but I'll send you a picture because I still have it in my first guitar case that I ever had with my first guitar. I still have the sticker there, the sticker that I got that night at that Sick of It All show. It's the We Stand Alone, you know, like the dragon logo.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And I distinctly remember asking Lou after the show, and I wonder, you know, like you know, it's not like I talk to him every day, but you know, we talk. There's a history of years, right? But it's like I remember asking him, you know, like, hey man, you know, like thanks a lot, man. Hey, would you mind signing this for me? And he said, oh nah, man, you know, I'm just another guy, man. You know, why don't you sign it for me? And I got it at 14 years old. I got it.
Yeah.
That it's like, don't, you know, these are just dudes like you. And I mean, there's no uniform. You know,
Right.
that's also another difference. You know, the hardcore bands that I grew up and listened to, there was no uniform. I mean, like they were just dudes that just were wearing what they were wearing, and they got on stage. There was no like, let's put on makeup, let's make sure everybody has, you know, matching black shirts. There was none of that. And I'm not
Yeah.
saying there's anything wrong with people that choose to have like a stage uniform look. That's perfectly fine. It's just that's just I'm just expanding on the things that made me feel like that, but with some of the names that are on my um the people that have featured in my recordings, those are my friends,
Right.
and they were my boys and my friends before they were, as renowned as they are. I mean, like you look at Terror. um I've known Scott since like 98, before Terror. I remember when Buried Alive stopped being a band. His sister Becky lived here in Houston. I remember spending time with him when he was down here, and he was for her wedding, and he was living in Phoenix at the time, I believe. And I remember him telling me, I'll be back, with another band, and you know, it'll be big, and that was like in 2000, maybe. That's before Terror started,
Yeah.
It's
right?
crazy.
And then I share the road with him and Aaron from Death Threat, and those are, I mean, those are dudes that I would have in my records, or I would do music with, or play shows with, even if no one came to see them.
Right.
Those were my friends, and we have history together, and you know, it's they're there not because they'll sell records. They're there because it's, for me, it was necessary. Scott had to be in this fire. Scott had to be in Tested and True. And actually, they were down here in Houston playing. I can't remember who they were on the road with, but I just I told him, you want to do that song, that Test and True song with me?" And I was like, "Here." The bass player was Carl at the time. He wasn't doing full like First Blood full time yet. Right? First Blood just had like a demo, and I
Yeah.
was like, "Dude, Carl, you're coming with us too. I got a song for you to sing in." I just packed them in the van, half rested, and I was like, "Let's go to the." I packed them in Van to Live. We had an E250 that I bought off the lot to do tours of Will to Live, and I just packed them in the van and drove them over to my friend Craig's house, to his studio, and they just banged those songs out. And then like about a month later, Ray was in town with Full Blown Chaos, and I was like, the album's not done yet, dude. you know, I need you in one of the songs."
Yeah.
And that was that, man. And then for there's an unreleased album that I mean, I have the whole story written out in there. The album that was supposed to come out in the album that was supposed to come out in Eulogy. That one, there's one of the tracks in there that has one of my favorite singers ever. The song "Learning to Live" features Bruce LePage, the original singer from Hunter Demons,
Oh, sick.
is in
Yeah.
that album, dude. And I was just kind of, I don't know, man. I was kind of bummed to shelf that record, but it wasn't what we rehearsed. It wasn't what we had agreed to do with the record label. So I just, I told the record label, "Hey, man, this is out of my control. It's I wrote the lyrics, but on the music end, we're the main songwriter we had at the time, rest his soul. He couldn't. I mean, he just didn't come up with the that side of things. He saw it differently. He saw that we could record a Tested and True EP again, and I'm like, we just put that out a year ago, man. And it didn't cut it for me. It didn't cut it for Eulogy. And then I asked, well, can we come up with another 5 songs? And said no. So I said, gentlemen, I respect you too much for this. Let's go ahead and shake hands and rip this contract up. I'll eat the recording, and probably no one will ever hear it. And then in retrospect, I mean, like, this is like in 2007 or whatever, and then several years later, I listened to it again, and I was like, "Oh, this shit has some bangers in it, man. There's some really good songs in there." It's just that in the end, I have a thing for it because like some of them were slower than we wrote them, slower than we rehearsed them. So it's like, oh man, like, I don't know, man. In my I still have this mental reference of what they were supposed to sound like, and they sounded different, you know.
Yeah.
And I just have to make the best out of it with the vocals and the lyrics. But still, in spite of that, there's some really good songs in there, and that's why I figured I'll just put it out there for people to check out. And then that's that. At the time, also, I figured, maybe it's time for Will to Live to take a rest. And excuse me, um, we did take a break. We had a last show in 2008, exactly 10 years after the band started, and we parted ways with Scott, the guitarist that we had at the time, and bass player for Will to Live, and Eric, who would play in Will to Live in the new version of Will to Live again up until last year, and Mike Fury too at the time, our drummer. I just kind of told him, I need some time off. I was buying a house. I was looking at buying a house also. People kept asking me, man, like, are you really done? Are you really done? And I was like, God damn it, man. I didn't last like 4 months out. And I started a band called The Weight of Respect. And that shit is out there on cyberspace also, man. We just did like a little demo, like a little 4-song demo. And it's definitely like maybe a little closer to Ringworm. A
Okay.
little
Oh,
like
sick.
it's like almost like Ringworm meets, it's thrashier for sure. It's like Ringworm meets Jesus, not Jesus, but it's like Ringworm meets Crowbar. Like Ringworm
Oh,
meets
okay.
Crowbar, a little Marauder for good measure there. We which wrote those 4 songs. I got with some of my friends that are like, to this day, some of the best musicians I've ever played with. These guys, my local friends out here, my boy Mark, Craig, who also recorded Will to Live for a long time, and my boy Spike, insane drummer, man. And I just told them what I needed, and it's like they wrote it just like that in a week. I had those songs ready, and then I threw the lyrics on them, and we did them. But we started playing shows with under the name The Weight of Respect, right? And it's like, well, what do we do for the others? As fillers, well, we write more music. Oh, we'll just play some Will to Live songs. And it's like, the more shows we played, the more it's like, dude, these dudes don't want to hear fucking Way to Respect, dude. This guy's from Will to Live back.
It's one. It's one. Listen to
And
Will
then it's
Live.
like, I want a Will to Live back too.
Yeah.
So we gave it another go, man. And my boy Chris Conflict, is the guitarist for Pride Kills. That's another band you need to check out, from the early 2000s here in Texas. Pride Kills. My boy Gabe, who also played in Will to Live at one point, he played bass for Will to Live in our first record, in Reflections of Human Character. So Chris, he was the driving force. It's like, man, we got to do this again, man. And we got Daniel Alba, who is the singer for Die Young. That's another band you need to check out from the early 2000s. Die Young. I think they go by Die Young TX in social media or whatever for lawsuits' sake. Um, we got Eric back in the band, the bass player, and Mike, the drummer. Mike's always been. In fact, Mike was had already started doing the Word of Respect with me also, and man, that was the second chance for Will to Live, and we recorded All Habits Die Hard, and then my wife and I got pregnant, and it was time for shit to get real, and then
Yeah.
I started. I worked for Lowe's, and I made an insanely good living, working 40 hours a week, because I made my salary, which was very handsome, and then I also got paid commissions, and like the structure was so insane that it was so good, like it was too good to be true. You had all these dudes making, 6 figures plus, just selling appliances. It's just like all the managers were like quitting so they could go sell appliances. And
Yeah.
then, these people just figured, fuck it, let's just go ahead and, now that we're number one in appliance market share in the industry, let's just go ahead and we'll keeping taking the things from the manufacturers, the kickbacks, but we'll stop paying commission. So yeah, after that, I said it's time to go do something different, man. And I started working with my family, and man, when it's not just you, but like everyone in your family, depending on your focus, and it's like, it's a lot of money at play, because it's not like it's a business that's gonna make us millionaire, but it's like it's a very high capital turnover business. And it's like you can't fuck up, man. You gotta be
Yeah.
paying attention to what you're doing. And man, there's people that are able to, have 3 or 4 kids and work 2 or 3 jobs and still do their band, still go to shows, every other weekend and go on tour and this and that. And hey, man, I salute people that can do that, but
Yeah.
I couldn't, you know. I, what little of me, through my music, and I like to, it's got to be a deep dive for me, man. I can't just superficially do shit, man. And especially in the case of, the family business we do is an extension of, my father's career. He's an oil and gas, and he's this in 2 months he's gonna have 3 months he's gonna have 54 years in that business. And
Jeez.
you know this it's a legacy that we can't tarnish, man. So I
Right.
had to learn how to wear like 20 hats in the within the our family business, which was going to take time. And at the end, that's what was going to feed my wife, my son, and the rest of the family too. We all make the money together. And we're by no means millionaires or whatnot, but we don't lack for much, man. And it's, again, no excuse for not you know not being as active with the bands or even within the scene. That, like I said, there's people that are able to do it, but for me personally, I feel like I'd given very sincerely and selflessly, and I needed to, take some time to
Sure.
tend to my family, man. And we stopped playing shows as often as we did. Daniel and my boy Willow continued booking a show called Fall Core, where we try to showcase the best of Texas hardcore. Obviously we couldn't feature everyone that would have liked to be featured at the time, but I mean, Iron Age got to play. Just about all the emblematic bands of the era. Even bands that were starting out at the time, like Scourge, who was fucking amazing and
Yeah.
just put out a great record. You need to check out last year. You name it, man. And also brought bands from did the best. Daniel and Willow did the best to bring out bands from the emblematic bands in the U.S. At the time, whether it was Hundred Demons or Blood for Blood slash Ramallah. They brought them, man. So for people that couldn't travel or weren't willing to travel, where now it's commonplace for a lot of people to show tech from people to show from Texas to roll out to This Is Hardcore into some of these
Yeah.
fests. Well, before it wasn't. If you wanted to see those
Right.
bands, somebody had to bring them down here for you,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so we slowly played less and less shows, while all this was going on. And then COVID hits, right? And it's like, holy shit, now we have all this time. In truth, I could do my job from just about anywhere where I could get Wi-Fi, but if we couldn't go anywhere,
Yeah.
and if we went
Right.
anywhere, if we went anywhere, it was like, well, fuck, I guess let's go right around, just burn gas, so we could just feel like we're not home.
Yeah.
Or if we go to a park or something, it's like, hey, people are coming, we gotta move. We don't want to be around those people. We don't know if they have the cooties also.
Right.
So, man, my wife actually, I credit for telling me, for pushing me, like, hey, man, you need to get back with Will to Live, dude. You need to get that new record going. You said you were gonna write a new record, like in 2018, and you started writing a song, which is the last song in the album, Nothing Is Over. I started writing that song, and she said, "Why don't you should write a new one?" And she started giving me some ideas, and I was like, "Well, man, I've said so much already with Will to Live that I wanted to say. What can I do that is challenging and that is different for me, right?" And I'll tell you guys, and I have, and I don't apologize for it, but I've had a very privileged childhood. Like, I mean, we were never rich. We're not rich now either, but I mean, I lacked for nothing. I never faced many hardships. I always had somebody telling me that I was fucking awesome, that I was the smartest. Nobody told me I was the most athletic, but I was always told that I was smart, that I was a leader, that people followed me, and that I had charisma. And I was always told that every day. And man, I was this kid in El Salvador playing with all these American toys. I had, all this. My dad would come home, like he worked for Shell, man, and he would come from Houston or from wherever conference he was at, and he would come with the ones that are super expensive now, the Kenner action figures from Star Wars, all that shit. So I can't write about having lived a rough life or having lacked for much, because then I would be a poser and I would be disrespecting so many others that have lacked for things, who lived with their worst enemies, who were constantly belittled and unprotected by and left at their own devices by the people that were supposed to be taking care of them. And so here's the idea: why don't I fucking write an album where every song is about someone other than me? Let's write it, and let this be a something from that I've telling someone else's story seen through their eyes and or through their experiences. And man, I picked out. I did go to school. I have a double major in philosophy and psychology. I never pursued like a career in
Yeah.
either field. For philosophy would have been academia, but for like I never went and got like I didn't take classes for counseling or anything like that. So I mean, I just based on what I had read and my own therapy that I've had myself for anxiety over the years, and then just what I knew from cognitive behavioral therapy, interviewing techniques, and this and that, I decided to interview a couple of different people. I kind of outlined like the certain things that I wanted to address, like things that mental health things that people could be facing. And then, there's, molded is about somebody that endured bullying. I wanted to do something that addressed people living in a toxic spousal situation. I wanted to do, you know, I was watching a lot of specials on cults, and I guess define cult or whatever, but we're
Yeah.
talking cults that are offshoots that are so out there, but that they have a couple of common things, which is controlling someone's life to the point that they are like the organization is all they know, and the whole world surrounds around them, and betrayal means maybe not physical death, but just
Yeah.
as good as death, where they're disenfranchised, and where are you going to get loans from, where are you going to get, I mean, you know nothing outside of that little enclave, so, and that's actually a friend's story, somebody that sings for a band that a lot of people know, and his story with this particular cult, and how it damaged him, how it damaged his family, and ultimately how he was rescued, by his mother, and how he's in a better place now. There's, I guess, the only song that's probably there's a song called "I Am," which is about someone I know that was survived sexual assault, and there's a song, like I said, "Nothing Is Over" is actually about veterans. A lot of my friends. That was actually like a lot of friends. Maybe three or four people's story and their experience coming back, from serving, and the reality is that a lot of them went one way and came back a different way,
Yeah.
right? And then services are there, but they're so out there, and so there's so much red tape that some of these guys just say, "Man, fuck it. Why do you have to make it so fucking difficult?" And instead there's self-medication, and there's this third person mentality that is like, "Oh man, you could just tough it out, or you could
Right.
just there's help there. You don't get the help because you don't want it." And it's like, motherfucker, you wouldn't walk a mile in their shoes, dude. And I myself, I was never in the service, and I said I didn't lack for anything, but there's one thing I did experience firsthand was war. I grew up in during the Civil War in El Salvador, and I wasn't a
That's right.
combatant, but I know what it's like. Like we could be having this podcast, and all of a sudden, all you will hear is loud, two or three loud booms, and actually the power would cut off immediately. So we would cut off, and you would be wondering what the fuck happened to Rob, and Rob's under the desk, or Rob's running over to get Justice and Esperanza, my wife and my kid, and said we got to go to the room that has no windows. I grew up like that. That is something I grew up with
Yeah.
until I moved from El Salvador at age 12, and there's nothing I can, no book, and that's in a Will to Live song actually, but there's no book that can ever, or movie you can see, that's ever going to describe to you what the smell in the air after a real explosion that could have killed you. That smell, people screaming and things shaking. I hope my son never has to smell or feel that. I hope none of your kids do either. It's just
Yeah.
it's some serious shit, man. But the only song that probably has a little bit of me, but it has a little bit of a lot of my other friends too. That wasn't a formal interview. That was a lot of conversations I had. It's Before You Go, which is it's about somebody that's tired of seeing his friends check out. No one's. It's pointless to point fingers at this point. Blame any political view. Oh, it has to do. This is because we've removed God from the schools, or this is because kids don't respect their parents. This is because this, because that. I mean, it probably has a little more to do with, how it's entire generations that are just told you need to get through your 12 years of school, and then you got to go to college and make straight A's and get this badass job and as a professional and this and that. There's all these expectations um, that there's such a thin line between motivating, between setting up expectations, and what's literally possible for people to accomplish.
Yeah.
It's not for everybody, and it's like you were so worried about teaching kids, people, how to go out there and make money, that you didn't teach them how to live life, how to fucking
Yeah.
fight their way out of a fucking wet paper bag. So now we're surprised that people take matters into their own hand, or that nothing's worth fighting. But then at the same time, that song actually has a lot more to do with, what do you say to somebody that's already there, that's already fucking tried everything to their in their devices, like, and is contemplating checking out. If you go tell them, oh, think about our friendship, think about your family, oh, don't be so selfish, don't be so, man, at that time that person's already fucking checked out and not listening to you anymore.
Yeah.
You may be actually giving them a reason to go do it faster, right? I struggled for a long time realizing that not everybody is dealt the same cards. And as I said, mine were very privileged. Not everybody has the same weapons to fight what life throws at people. This is my little way of sending a love letter to a lot of friends, and a little homage to my nephew, my only blood nephew, Ariexis Michael Perez Galdames. We lost him at the age of 29, January 1st, 2021, and regrettably, he is one of these statistics. That song, I can't. We've done it live a couple of times, and I have a hard time
Yeah.
singing through it because I choke up, and if that record, I figure that the record is the best composed, the best written record we've done so far, the best sounding record we have, in my opinion. It's a lot of, we'll put a lot of time into it, in the writing, in the tracking. I'd never ever gotten grilled so hard on studio before. I've never been challenged so much. I've never been asked to go rewrite a pattern of a song before. Uh, and I'll tell you which one was rewritten. Cold Embrace, the pattern was a little different, the way I was singing it. And I was challenged to write it differently, and I'm so glad that I did because I think it sounds a lot better. It also makes me enjoy it that much more when I listen to it. It's like shit, man. That song, some of these songs I demoed so much. Some had like 3 or 4 different endings, or mid
Yeah.
sections, and that's I'm very happy with the album. And if you guys can identify with it, and a lot of others can identify with it, is because it's true. That's what makes the album special. That's what makes it has its own life because it's real. It's people's real stories, and it was so important for me to be truthful to it. In fact, I sent the lyrics to my wife's therapist so she could proof it, and she could tell. I told her what the album was about and what I wanted to accomplish with it. I sent it to my friend Cody Higgs in Tennessee. He's also a licensed therapist, and I said I need you to proof it as well. I need to know that this has some sort of a validity, like as in this is really something that would come up in therapies. This is, I want to make sure that this is legit, for, it was, I mean, I took every care I could to be as respectful
Yeah.
to the subject matter as I could. And, I'm glad you guys think it showed on the album. The fucking artwork, also, it took a long ass time with it too, but we're like, man, we've done all this. How the fuck are we gonna just grab some pictures and digitize them? It's like, no, man, this we need to do the real thing, man. We need some canvas. We need some shit for real here. And so we need a concept. And I don't know if you guys read the article that was put out in my friend's website, The Wizard. It's like an analysis of the artwork and how it all ties together with the music. Yeah, I mean, again, there's no, you know, I don't think we could have done more with it. I mean,
Right.
I guess people say that there no work is really ever really truly finished. But for me, I was like, fuck, there's nothing else we could do with this. I mean, if there's anything else we could do with it, it'd be for like another pressing,
Yeah.
different color or whatever. But I'm extremely satisfied with it, and it makes me stoked to think about what's coming in the future too. We're already writing some new material, and I'm not promising that we're gonna do like this like a whole album or anything like that. I mean, I guess that's cool anymore. Kids have thanks to TikTok and to Reels, people have such a short
Short
attention
attention
spans these
span.
days that it's like, man, don't be giving me no 14 songs. Just fucking let's
Which I hate because I love full lengths, but
let's get in and get out. I think we set the bar pretty high for ourselves with this last recording, and I hope that we can. I'll do it. I thought personally I had set the bar high for myself with the True Intentions record, and I was like, fuck, man, I hope I really hit it with Will to Live, and I feel like I did another little. I went up a little echelon on that, and we do another Will to Live, another True Intentions. There's some songs written for that as well. There's what else before you ask me anything about Will to Live? There's a project I have called Outpost 31. That one is, I mean, it's a little bit in the infancy stages again. This is one of those dad core projects in the sense that like would you do it on dad timing, man. The album is really written already. It was written. All the music was written, by Jacob Henderson from Bitter End.
okay.
Jacob, love you. And I wrote the lyrics, and we demoed it out on GarageBand on the phone, dude. And it's like, I mean, it already sounds badass, but we the more songs that he kept writing, man, the more I was like, oh no, dude, we need to play this shit live. So, we've been getting together with some bros down here and doing some jamming. Again, everybody's in other bands, so in more than one band. Actually, almost everybody's in 2 or 3 bands themselves. So, once we get that together, to where it's tight enough to where we're happy and we want to play shows or go record it, then we will. But up until now, it's just a project that's out there, that I look forward to doing someday, and to sharing with y'all, because it's definitely different from Will to Live, or from True Intentions. You know, for people that have been listening to stuff I've been doing for the past couple of decades. But
Yeah.
again, I don't know how much I digress from what you really wanted to ask me, but
Look,
I'm kind of
um,
I talk a lot, man. I apologize.
no, don't apologize at all. Like, I mean, we've got this goofy podcast where we mess around and stuff, and this was awesome because it's funny how different generations, but we all kind of share the same story, right? Like most of the stuff you said about how you got into hardcore, about how the music related to you, the experiences you had. Me and Trevor could go down the list of our lives and tell you the same experiences, and it's not often for me, especially now that I'm getting older, that I listen to an album that just kind of like enraptures me. Like I think I made the joke to you when I first started talking to you that like I've probably listened to your album 4 or 5 times a week, just because of how much it like related, not necessarily related, because I didn't go through a lot of this stuff either, but you can absolutely feel the realness of what you're saying. You can feel the passion, how raw it is, how real it is. And just to sit here for the last, hour listening to you talk and share your experience was like, that's just as good of an experience for me
Dude,
because I respect this music. I
I,
respect what you're doing and I love
I,
it.
uh,
So
I, I cried after some of those sessions, man. I cried during some of those sessions. I went home with migraines after some of those vocal sessions. They were real.
yeah,
I grabbed the lyric sheets for one or two of the songs, and I was like, like I did it, man. I told your story. I told your story, and we're gonna put it in record, and people are gonna listen to it, and I'm gonna sing it out loud, and uh, that's a very cathartic thing
yeah,
for me, and it feels really good, man. And I really appreciate you guys giving it the time of day and listening to us. Uh, this 2024, we want to do a little more with Will to Live. Hopefully, a little more travel. We've done. It's been a long time. It's been a long time since we've gotten in a van and going out anywhere. Earlier this year, we did just a little 5 day Texas run with Madball as direct support, as you already knew. Uh, we've been talking with our friend Josh here with State of Mind booking, and we're hopefully we can line up a few dates outside of Texas, in some of the areas that were some of our old stumping grounds. Some of the places that we used to go to in the 2000s, and go see some old friends there, and hopefully see some new friends.
yeah,
I definitely urge you to check out the Texas bands. Now that you're living here in Texas, man, you have Worst Behavior in McAllen. You probably already knew Scourge and Power Trip. But then in Houston, you have Houston Hardcore today compared to, you know, 1997 or whatever, whenever you could pack everything in a tiny room, wherever you could go see Sick of It All play, and there were no hardcore bands to play, or maybe one hardcore band. My boy Greg used to sing for this band Vice Grip. They played with them at one point, but I saw him in '94 with Korn, actually, in February of '94, before Korn blew up, in a tiny room, and they didn't have any hardcore bands to play with them, and it was
yeah,
just crazy to me, man. And it's like, doesn't mean that the old scene was not good or was less real. It doesn't mean that the scene that Will to Live had a direct hand in starting was better or more real than what's going on today. I think the past is important because it's what got us to where we are today. But I live today, you
yeah,
know, and to me, it's awesome. Like I always knew that, forgive me, that Texas one day would be a force to reckon with, and would have bands that would be for powerhouses. And I always figured I would just kind of be the like an old guy in the fucking background, just kind of smiling, like like Mr. Miyagi, you know.
Yeah.
And and now I am that guy because I go see some of the shows that some of these promoters out of Houston now put on at venues that are just a dream come true. I take my hat off to venues like Fitzgerald's that we had back in the day, venues like Walters, OG Walters and Walters in Washington. But I take my hat off to John Hale and the End, the Compound, Cam and Trip Six, and all this. And I don't have any notes here, guys. I'm literally just speaking my heart here because they've given a haven and a place that and it was just we were booking at shows were getting booked at Tamina Hall, which are these little tiny little places, or VFW halls. We oftentimes didn't have proper venues, and to see promoters that put on steady shows now that bring out tons of kids. You have Pablo Solis with No Sleep Fest. You have my boy Josh with Joshua Delangel with Burner Cell Phone. My boy Tony Galmiche with Creative World. I mean, so on and so forth. There's so many bands out here in Houston for you to check out, man. Path of Vengeance. Check out Corpse File. There's tons, man. And not from history. Not I'm not telling you to go check out bands. Where you can go check out Pride Kills, Will to
Yeah.
Live, and all these bands that were around back in the day, and some of which are still around. Like Die Young is still around, but currently Houston is thriving with bands like Lie, with bands like as I was saying, Path of Vengeance, Scathe. They're just I'm just blown away that I can go to a show and there's 100 heads, 400 heads, and they're going off. Now you're in Dallas, dude. You definitely want
Yeah.
to check out Gagging Order. You want to check out Ballista. Pretty much anything that Robert Dominguez is involved in. He plays in a zillion bands. He books shows. COTC booking. What up? Uh, he's in Dysmorphia, which is like a death metal band.
Okay.
He's in he's in Soledad. He's in a ton of bands, dude. That you got to check out. You have a booming scene there for you to check out. So,
Good.
but all right, man. I don't want to keep you guys longer than I already have.
No,
I'm just happy, man. I'm happy Texas hardcore is what it is today, and that our bands are not bands that are like, not bad for a band from Texas. No, motherfucker. Our bands are good for any
Dude.
kind of fucking for anywhere.
Yeah.
So that's pretty awesome, man. I'm
Well,
stoked.
Well, listen, as you're starting to build out those tours and maybe hitting some spots, come up to Salt Lake.
It's been a while
I've
since
got
we've
a few
been there.
hookups for you here. Well, you let us know. I mean, we can get some kids out for you for sure. So,
Awesome, man.
but dude, this was awesome, man. Like you said that you just talked a lot. I had a list of questions. You literally just like went down my list. So it was perfect, and we really appreciate you.
Yeah. Yep.
And
Like I said,
appreciate you guys, man.
Yeah, you're more than welcome. This was awesome. And just to be able to sit here and listen to your experience and everything with Will to Live and all your other projects just makes us very happy that we were able to find you and talk to you because, yeah, this was awesome. So 100%
Hey, man, thanks a
appreciate
lot,
it very
man.
much.
Thanks a lot. Again, Will to Live coming at you. Post our Tree Link account in there so people can go check out our not just what we have our streaming music, but also some of these articles where they can get a hold of our music. Shout out to Another City Records, who incidentally used to be Spook City. It's the same guy that used to be Spook City.
Okay.
He put out Tested and True, and once again, for this record, he raised his hand and he said, "Yeah, let's do it. Let's do another, let's do another crazy adventure." And Sean Hopman, I fucking love you, bro. Thank you for always believing in me. And I look forward to seeing some old faces and some new faces. Thank you very much for listening.